Moving on, Deion Sanders, what say you? What's
Deion
up with your man?
Sanders,
What's up with your man?
aka Prime Time, aka Coach Prime. He has moved on from Jackson State to the University of Colorado. Actually, no, it is not referred to. The University of Colorado is referred to as Colorado University. They are CU.
Right.
All right.
Make that distinction.
Yeah.
Why is this
You
such
can,
big news, do you think? Is he not allowed to make his paper? Is the man not allowed to make his paper?
let's go. Let's talk about it. Okay. First and foremost, Colorado used to be in the Big 12. They since moved to the Pac 12. All right. Why is that important? Colorado, ever since they've been in the Pac 12, has been a piece of shit football program. Even though they have great academics and Boulder, Colorado is beautiful and they've got great alumni and they used to be a bit of a powerhouse. They actually won one national championship and they actually are an AP national title and they won a Heisman. Raham Salam won a Heisman. They used to be really, really good. I had a guy from my high school who was a captain on that team, Terrence Wheatley. They were great back then. They played in a Big 12 championship against Oklahoma when they had Adrian Peterson. All right, so I know some people who have been to Colorado. When I was living in Denver, I know some people from Colorado. Great people. They deserve to have a good football team. That football team has had 3 winning seasons in 20 years, and they won 1 game this year. All of the coaches got fired. And it's the black head coach who got fired. All right. Setting the table. So that's why they wanted to go get Deion Sanders. And part of why Deion Sanders went there was because he saw the ability to replace a black coach who got fired with a black coach. To the best of anyone's knowledge or recent memory, no one can remember a black head coach getting fired and being replaced with another black head coach. Usually, the folks who who never liked the black head coach in the first place, seize upon that to be like, yep, we should have just got this other person. All right. I've never seen a black head coach at the college football level, especially the major college football level, replaced with another black head coach. So this was a very unique situation. That was part of Deion Sanders did mention this in one of the press conferences. All right. Now let's talk about Deion Sanders and Jackson State. Jackson State is an HBCU. It is where Walter Payton played. Several great players have come out of there. However, since integration, since more money has gone into college football, the great players that used to go to these HBCUs, several of them now are going to PWIs, predominantly white institutions, typically in the Power 5, the major college football conferences. Why? Because there's resources and whatnot, resources, facilities, etc., and more media attention, which helps you when you want to go pro. What Deion Sanders did by going to Jackson State not only helped Jackson State, because a lot of people didn't even know Jackson State existed. I do. I had a friend from high school who played there. Okay. A lot of people didn't know Jackson State existed. A lot of people didn't even know what HBCUs were until Deion Sanders went there. He's one of the biggest names to go to HBCUs. And he started a trend of other prominent NFL people going to HBCUs. Eddie George is the head coach at Tennessee State now. And he did so. He said he did so because he was inspired by what Coach Prime did at Jackson State. Okay. So he helped Jackson State. He helped Jackson State. He also helped the city of Jackson because it brought more business activity and more hope and more attention to the problems that are going on in Jackson in terms of crime, in terms of access to clean water, consistent access to clean water. And it also got them
showcased. He got the school showcased in the 2021 NBA All-Star Game. He got it featured in a Pepsi ad, and he donated half his salary to complete renovations to the school's football stadium. I was getting there. He did a lot more than any other coach. He did what you would actually expect the president of the school to do, the provost or the chancellor of the school to do. Mm-hmm. He, as a football coach, not only brought in corporate sponsorships to restore the facilities, to build a new practice field, to build a new weight room, to build a new locker room. He brought in corporate sponsorships in Under Armour for their uniforms and their gear. They didn't have that before, not at that level. All right. He, on top of that, brought the national spotlight by, as you said, getting the JSU band to go on things like Good Morning America and stuff like that. And on top of that, bringing just more attention to HBCUs in general. HBCU attendance is up. HBCU enrollment is up. HBCU applications are up ever since
Deion Sanders went to Jackson State 3 years ago. All right. Not only that, but as you put it, he was only getting paid $300,000 a year, which is low for a coach, but I guess maybe that might be average for an HBCU head football coach. He was donating half of that back to the school. All right. So he's donating half of his salary back. He's doing things that head football coaches are not supposed to have to do in terms of negotiating corporate sponsorships, in terms of advocating for all HBCUs, in terms of getting the national spotlight on these HBCUs, in terms of getting the band booked on Good Morning America. They also got College Game Day, the premier college football pre-game TV show. It's ESPN, it's a staple of ESPN's broadcast. They've been doing College Game Day for, I think, almost 15 or maybe even 20 years at this point. All right. Basically, they do a big pregame, but they do it on location at one big specific game. All right. And the crowds come out and cheer and da-da-da. College Game Day came to an HBCU. This is the second time they've ever come to any HBCU ever. And they've been doing this show for 20 years. All right. First time they've ever been first time they've ever been to a SWAC school, and first time in 15 years that they've ever been to a doggone HBCU. All right. And so you got to show HBCU culture on a national stage. They had Black Greek organizations out there stepping. They had these bands out there doing their thing. And again, they also did Good Morning America on top of all that, brought the national spotlight, all right, to Jackson State, along with unprecedented business activity for that weekend. All right. So he did all of that. Again, head football coach is supposed to do that. That's the doggone chancellor's job. Okay. And on top of that, he also had to intercede and publicly call on the mayor of Jackson and the governor of Mississippi. Again, Jackson, Mississippi is a 80% Black town. It's dealing with a ton of poverty, but it's also the capital of Mississippi. All right. He had to call on those two people. The governor of Mississippi is obviously a Republican. The mayor of Jackson is Black. He had to call on them to resolve their differences because they kept having to deal with access to water. And I keep bringing up the water thing because these are developing world conditions that those folks were dealing with. And it wasn't just the HBCU campus, Jackson State. It was like half the city of Jackson didn't have access to clean water. They had to put the football team in hotels in the good side of Jackson just so they'd have access to showers and ice. There was a point in time where even there, they didn't have showers. And so Prime and some of the guys had to bathe in a pool, the hotel pool. All right.
Right.
You can't run a
well, it's important. It's important to keep in mind that football wasn't even introduced into HBCUs into the 1890s because they didn't have any budgeting for it. They didn't even want sports programs in schools because they weren't expecting Black athletes to become professional anything. So they don't have the same type of donor base or generational wealth that keeps more competitive and economically advanced schools going.
Yeah, and they don't have the attendance either. You know, CU Boulder has like 50,000 students. All right.
Right.
So even if, let's say the tuition is exactly the same, they just have more students paying that tuition. So that's more alumni too. And so that's more people potentially donating back.
More potential donors. Right. You have a bigger pool to call up for.
Yeah. So he's running a football program. Okay. And then on top of that, oh yeah, he won a lot. I think he only lost 5 games in 3 seasons. He won back-to-back conference titles. They only lost 2 games last year. One game that was against a D1 FBS level team against the Raging Cajuns. I think that's not UL Lafayette or UL Monroe. It's one of those. But they lost to that team, and then they lost the Celebration Bowl, which is considered the Black College National Championship. This year, they went undefeated. Okay, so he did all these great things, but they also won games. And they also brought in NIL money, and they also brought in 5-star prospects that would never look at HBCUs before. Okay, and he gave them a blueprint for continuing these corporate sponsorships, for continuing this national spotlight, for continuing the NIL, for continuing to win in the future. He did all of that while also dealing with lack of access to water consistently. And on top of that, he got robbed twice.
Damn. So what's the problem?
His car
what's
got
the problem?
Let me get into that. But it's important to point out, the moment he got there, like his first month in Jackson when they moved there, his truck got broken into. Somebody stole a boombox out of there. And so he had to literally post on Instagram, hey, I just want the boombox back. I'm not worried about trying to file charges. Just somebody bring the boombox back because a friend gave that to me and it has sentimental value. Someone eventually did give that boombox back with a note on it saying, oh man, they wilding, da-da-da. But yeah. And then he got robbed again. And the second time he got robbed is the interesting part. It was during a game.
Damn.
It was during a game. They broke into the coach's locker room and took his phone, his jewelry, stuff like that.
Wow.
Okay. And so Coach Prime goes out to the press conference. He's like, hey, this is really emotional for me because the players just presented me with the game ball. And I wanted to call my family and tell them what they did. And I don't have my phone. I don't have my jewelry. I don't have anything because someone broke into the coach's locker room and took it. Now, eventually, they found the person as they were trying to make a getaway, and they were holding that person. Now, here's the important part. The Jackson State administrators, after Coach Prime goes out and does that press conference immediately after the game, because he doesn't know that they caught the guy yet, the Jackson State administrators called Coach Prime a liar. They threw him under the bus. They said he didn't know what he was talking about. They said they made it sound like he was lying and being emotional and being hysterical. And then Coach Prime said, oh, no. I have multiple people who told me they saw the guy go in and run out with the jewelry. And it's on video. Right. Okay. Man. And then the next day, the Jackson State administrators backtracked and said, oh, it was just a misunderstanding. We didn't mean to imply that Coach Prime was lying or whatever. I believe no good deed goes unpunished. And what is happening with Deion Sanders and the people that are mad at him for leaving, the people that are mad that he talked about God, the people that are calling him a sellout, this is typical bucket crabs shit. And this is also just the epitome of no good deed goes unpunished. It's not enough that he did all these things for you. It's not enough that he donated back half his salary. You also threw him under the bus and called him a liar when he got robbed, and it embarrassed you. So the moment y'all saw your chance to, the moment it became convenient to throw him under the bus, despite all these things he was doing for y'all, you did. I think that was the moment Coach Prime might have thought, maybe I'm not supposed to be here long term, because they threw him under the bus and called him a liar publicly, despite the fact he was doing all these things for y'all. The moment it became convenient. Instead of criticizing Coach Prime for leaving, y'all should be saying, thank you, Coach Prime, for accomplishing so much in just 3 years. Name one other person who has done that much for one institution in just 3 years. Again, as a football coach, not as the chancellor of the university.
And isn't somebody allowed to make their money? Doesn't he have the right to choose himself?
Yeah.
Don't most people?
Yeah. Aren't you allowed to make your money and not be criticized for making the money?
Right.
Come on. Yeah, so I'm very heated about this. I am not unbiased. I am very biased. I grew up in Dallas. I've met Deion Sanders a number of times. I used to go to his Bible study that he used to host on Tuesdays.
Wow.
He also provided a catered dinner to people. So if, for families that were struggling and stuff, you could go to that Bible study and have a free family dinner.
Aw. So you have a lot of respect for what he's done.
Yes. He has always tried to put people first. He's fallen on his face a couple times. Some things didn't work out with Prime Academy, with this academy in Dallas that he tried to do, where he lent his name to the administrators and he was just going to be the football coach, but then the administrators were fucking up all kinds of ways. And he was a very vocal critic of what they ended up, how bad of a job they did. And he really didn't like, how they dragged his name through the mud, but he was not the guy in charge. But when people bring up Prime Academy, they bring it up as if he did these things and he was the one who messed up, when it was actually just he lent his name to it and he was the head football coach. He's been trying to do right by people. And I don't like seeing someone who's trying to do the right thing, again, who's donating half their ostensibly low salary, all things considered, donating half of that back, and y'all still got a problem with it. It's bucket of crab shit.
Right. I can't disagree with a word you've said.
Yeah. And there are niggas that are more mad about Deion Sanders leaving Jackson State than they are about Brett Favre. There are black journalists being brought on CNN to criticize Deion Sanders. Bomani Jones, you fucking crab. He went on CNN and spoke for 30 minutes blasting Deion Sanders, Bomani Jones. CNN don't bring you on their airspace for anything except to talk about other Black people. They didn't bring you on there. Just like Candace Owens never gets brought on to talk about foreign policy. She only gets brought on to talk about Black people. Bomani Jones got brought on there. They didn't bring him on to talk about Brett Favre. They didn't bring him on to talk about anything like of that nature. They didn't bring him on to talk about Daniel Snyder. No. They brought him on to call Deion Sanders a sellout for 30 minutes on CNN. So yeah, I'm gonna go off on you for a little bit of time here on Raw Food. You're a doggone crab. You're a clout chaser, and your doggone TV show failed. Your podcast failed, and this is the only way you can get anybody talking about you or paying attention to you. You had to go on there and tear down Coach Prime.
Shade on this episode of Raw Food.